Would boots on the ground help the situation in Mozambique's embattled northern Cabo Delgado province? This afternoon, I want to unpack a decision by the Southern African Development Community, SADC, to deploy the bloc standby force. It aims to support Maputo government in efforts to combat the ongoing violent insurgency in Cabo Delgado. But details are scant about the number of soldiers or the timeline for this deployment. The gas-rich northern region has been besieged by violence since 2017. Nearly 3,000 people have reportedly been killed, and more than 800,000 others have been forced to flee as a result. Well, let's unpack this latest move by SADC with Piers Pigou from the International Crisis Group. Piers, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Midday View here on eNCA. I guess the fact that SADC finally approved the recommendation for some military intervention is a good step forward.
Well, you know, Dan, good afternoon to you and the viewers. It really is not as simple as it looks. It looks as though a decision has been made to deploy troops. And in fact, listening and talking to a number of people over the last couple of days since that communique came out, it appears that it isn't that, because for a deployment to happen, Mozambique still formally has to request for the standby force to be deployed. What the agreement is, we understand, is that there is a generalized agreement that they can be. But in terms of the protocol for defense and security, a formal request would have to be made. And that isn't the case. Meanwhile, we understand that there are some initial deployments of Rwandan security personnel in Cabo Delgado at the moment. So it's a little bit confusing at the moment. And those that think that this is a green light for the recommended 3,000 troops that were in the SADC technical assessment mission report that was leaked in April, that they think that that's going to be that kind of deployment, I think that's unlikely at this juncture. So it's going to be a little bit of time, I think, before we get some clarity on exactly what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to read that paragraph of the communique. I just want to explore this very quickly with you, because it's paragraph 7 of that communique issued by SADC on the 23rd. That's 2 days ago after that meeting. And it says here, the summit endorsed the recommendations of the report of the chairperson of the organ on politics, defense and security cooperation, and approved the mandate for the SADC standby force mission to the Republic of Mozambique to be deployed in support of Mozambique to combat terrorism and acts of violent extremism in Cabo Delgado. It does not continue to say, following a request by the government of Mozambique. I think those words are missing, because if the people we are talking to are saying that Mozambique still has to request for this deployment to happen, SADC should have pointed that out in a statement, don't you think?
Well, you would have thought so, but if you go to the protocol on defense, politics and security, you'll see that there is a very specific provision in that protocol saying that they must make a request. But and so hence the confusion. And I think a lot of people automatically jump to the assumption that means it's a green light. In some respects, talking to people in Mozambique yesterday, there is a sense that this was a kind of a face-saving exercise as well, for SADC to look as though it is doing something. Although, you know, reported today, we had the executive secretary of SADC, Dr. Sturgamina Tak, saying, quote unquote, we're going to war, whatever that means. So, you know, the hope is now that we get some actual clarity on this, because, of course, there is no detail, as you laid out, assuming that this is a green light to deploy, which I think there's still a very big question mark about this at this juncture. And what does deploy mean, and what does the standby force mean? It's a bit of a movable feast in many respects, because there is no standing army sitting on the side ready for deployment. That would have to be cobbled together. And the nature, or what is made up of this force in terms of its aerial, its land and its sea components has yet to be locked down. So I think there's a huge number of unanswered questions. And of course, we must be realistic about any kind of timeline, that it will take a long time before we see actual boots on the ground, I think.
Yeah, especially under the SADC banner. But with the little time left now, Piers, when I spoke to Professor Adriano Novunga a few days ago, previewing the summit before it took place on Wednesday and Tuesday, he said something about Rwanda. You've also mentioned Rwanda now when you were answering my first question about this SADC decision to deploy, but we don't know when that will take place, if it will take place, and Mozambique has to request. What is Rwanda doing in northern Mozambique?
Well, we know that President Nyusi was in Kigali at the end of April, and reportedly there was a statement from the Rwandan Ministry of Defense on the 24th, that's yesterday, saying that plans were being made for Rwandan deployment. And we picked up over the last 24 hours a number of different sources saying that actually there is a presence of Rwandans currently in Cabo Delgado, in Pemba, actually seen there in uniform. And I've spoken to a few people today who indicate that there are a couple of hundred Rwandans already in situ. So, you know, this is also unclear, and the extent to which Rwanda will be operating in conjunction with SADC and with SADC's blessing as well. So, again, Dan, this goes back to the point. There are a number of unanswered questions, and of course, this is a theme in the Cabo Delgado insurgency, that we really don't have a clear sense of so many issues that are in play.
So as far as we know today, the Rwandan forces on the ground, boots from Rwanda on the ground in northern Cabo Delgado, could be engaging with the insurgents, but we don't know why they are there. We'll have to wait and find out also whether or not they'll be cooperating or collaborating under the SADC banner. Thank you very much, Piers Pigou, for your analysis and insights at this hour. There was a lot of excitement on Wednesday that there'll be SADC military intervention in northern Mozambique to help the Mozambican government fight against the local insurgents there. That's been going on since 2017, but it's still not clear if that will happen, because apparently, according to SADC own protocols, Mozambique has to first request such a deployment. So what was that communique all about, really? Meanwhile,